Hey you guys, I have a board here that we are going to demonstrate how to do the next step on. You have a run your board after it's been glued up through the time saver, and you are now ready to make the dados on it. Okay, so remember we talked about dados and plugs. These are plugs. We're gonna save that for a different video. This right here is the dado. We're gonna do these with the table saw. I'm going to demonstrate that in a little bit here. And remember, they need to go from one edge or end to one edge or end. So I've got a student's cutting board here. And this is where that worksheet came in handy when we were doing different angles. I think it was the 75 and I don't even remember what the other angle was, but that worksheet helped us with the triangles, putting those together in different ways so that we could get different angles. You can see here that this student wanted his, by his final draft there, he wanted his to look like mountains. So what we did was we took the triangles and kind of positioned them in a whole bunch of different ways to get that angle right there. And then this one, he just wanted to go from the top down to the corner. So that one was pretty easy to figure out. This one, once we got it kind of where we wanted it with the two triangles, we just started making the line. So what that line ended up being was a 75-degree angle. So you can see 75 right here, 75 right here. So I've got my 30, 60, 90 triangle on the bottom and my 45, 90 on top of that. So you can see 30, 60, 90 triangle on the bottom, 45, 90 on top. And you can see that line right there. And like I said, he just took a straight edge end and then went from the top down to the corner here. Okay, we are back at the table saw now. And I've got this fancy dancy angle cutter from Rockler that I got last year. You guys are gonna get to use it. It's pretty sweet. The thing to know is that angles can get kind of confusing. So if you think you're gonna cut it wrong, please come ask me questions. This is one giant 90 degree right here, right? So from there to the edge right here would be 90 degrees. The first line that we drew is 75 degrees. So this measurement over here only goes to 50 up there. So I can't find 75 degrees. It's not there. So what I need to then find is what would I need to add to 75 to make it 90? And the answer is 15. So just to kind of explain this on paper, 75 angle here, okay, and a 15 here. 75 plus 15 is going to equal 7, 8, 9. 90. Ignore my elementary chicken scratch here. 90 degrees. So what I'm going to do is loosen up this black knob here, and then I can move this fence. And if I come in close here, you can kind of see there's that little red line, and I'm going to put it right on 15. Tighten up that knob, and now I'm going to put the board on here and make sure that it's going to line up correctly. So the student drew his lines on the top of his board because that's where we're going to be cutting. So then what we did is we kind of transferred those lines to the edge so that we can kind of see it when it's face down on the table. Now I'm looking straight down on top of the blade right now, and you can see that this does line up in the correct spot. It is a titch bit off on the opposite side, but we're gonna line it up with the line that I have it lined up with on top. And then it's just gonna be a tiny bit off down here, and then we'll just readjust for his next cut. Next thing you're gonna do is loosen this stopper guy up here and bring it up tight to your board. And then I'm just gonna tighten that up right there. Give it on your board another little push, and just double check. Yep, I'm good. Another thing to think about is how wide you want your dados. So you can see this one is wider than this one. I think this was a 1/4 inch and this was a 1/2. The way that we can adjust that is by either taking blades out of here or putting blades back in. This student said that he was okay with the width that this blade is right now, so we're just going to leave it the same. If you do want it skinnier or wider, then you're going to have me come back here and show you how to change the blade properly. Alright, so make sure the dust collector is on, you got your safety glasses on, hair tied back. What you're going to do is you're going to pull this towards you as you're pushing. You also have to double check your blade height. Ooh, I didn't go over that. Pause. So you don't want your blade coming up more than halfway past the halfway point of your board. If something were to happen and you accidentally dropped your board after you put the dado in here, your board might snap in half because it's going to be thin and brittle in that spot. So you just want to raise or lower the blade however high you want it, depending on your board thickness.
Go.
So you are going to push this back towards you, kind of push it up against your stopper block here. Make sure it's not touching. This can be kind of touching the blade, but you do not want your piece touching the blade before you turn it on. Okay, let's set it off. So as you can see, it takes a real long time for this table saw back here to stop turning. So please, please, please be careful. You do not have the guard on here. You cannot have the guard on here because we are not cutting all the way through your board. So watch those arms, watch those fingers. This does not have that super fancy stopping mechanism like our table saw up front does. So you need to be real cautious back here on this one. Okay, so it's a good thing we started with this middle line because the student wanted this line to go from up here to down here. This is eventually going to be cut off right here so that this is 16 inches from here to here, this line. So we're going to readjust this line before we cut that. But we're going to cut this line next because that's also a 15-degree angle. Alright, so to get that 15 or 75-degree angle on the other side, we actually had to make a little stopper block in there, angle block, for it to sit on when we cut it, which is no big deal. We just had to do some figuring. So again, these angles can get kind of confusing, so come and talk to me if you need to. Another thing that happened is it kind of wiggled when we were sending it through. And we fixed that. The blade had kind of come up here and made it all jagged. So to fix that, we just ended up running it through a little bit more on this side and a little bit more on that side. So it's a little bit wider here than it is here, but no big deal. Something that was very easily fixed. Okay, so I'm not going to show you the rest of the dados that we did on that board. Just because it's the same process. So biggest takeaways are you can adjust your dado blade by adding or taking away blades. If you want to do that, if you don't like the way that the blade is set up when you go back there, then come find me and I will show you how to switch them out. Another takeaway is you have to make sure it's lined up. So get it lined up, check it, double check it, and triple check it. Because if it's not lined up properly, you're going to cut it wrong. End of the world? No. Just your design may not line up the exact way that you want it to. Another one is watch your blade height. So make sure that it is not cutting past the halfway point of the thickness of your board. So that would be another extremely important thing. Watch your angles. We may need to make some sort of like angle block to throw in there so that you get the angle that you want. Again, not a big deal, just something to watch out for. My kids keep trying to come in the room and they're distracting me. So I hope that this video was informative enough for you to get your dados cut. You may need to rewatch this again so that you get all the information, because there's quite a bit of information in here. And in order to cut it properly, you might just have to watch it again. Same with all the other videos. If you're not understanding the information, then you're gonna have to rewatch them so that I don't have to keep explaining and re-explaining. So the next step for the dado process is finding a board, whether, I don't care, we didn't really talk about what kind of wood you are gonna put in your dados. You never planned that out. So now is the time for you to figure that out. So you can choose cedar, pine, maple, oak, walnut. If you add walnut in for your dados, that does not cost extra. That was only if you added it for your boards on your cutting board. You can add any kind of wood in for your dado. That was not planned out. You can figure that out now. You can go into the cutoff room, figure out which kind of wood is going to look best with your design. And then what you're going to do is measure how thick you cut. So most of your boards are going to be about 3/4 of an inch. If you cut to the halfway point, half of 3/4 is 3/8. All you do is double that number on the bottom, which would be 4, so you double it to 8, so 3/8. That's a really quick and easy way to half a fraction, is double the bottom number. I just lost some of you, but that's okay. So you're gonna wanna plane that board down to a little over however thick that cut is. So like I said, most of you are gonna have about a 3/8 to a 1/2 inch cut. So somewhere around 1/2 inch is what you're going to plane it down to. You don't want to plane your board that you're putting into your cutting board down past the thickness that you cut, or else you're going to have to skinny up your cutting board even more. So be careful of that. After you do that, you're going to measure how wide, okay, so however wide your blade was, is how wide your dado is going to be. And you're going to measure that. And then you're going to go over to the table saw. And I might cut it just a little bigger. And if it doesn't fit, you can always trim just a little bit more off. So this student's ended up being, I think it was 3/4 of an inch. So what we did was we set the table saw to just a hair over 3/4. And then we cut that piece and we fit it in there to make sure that it fit. It didn't fit the first time. So then all I did was just knock that fence over, a couple of just taps with my fingers, very light taps. So it went over like a 1/64 of an inch. And we kept doing that until it fit in there pretty snug, but not to the point where we had to like pound it in. You don't want to have to pound it in. Wood expands and contracts as the seasons go on. So you don't want to have to pound it in. What could happen is it could expand so much, like in the summertime when we get a lot of humidity, it could crack your board. So you do want a little tiny bit of wiggle room in there, but not a whole lot. You want it to fit tight, but not too tight. So that's going to be kind of a challenge for some of you. And also the whole angle thing is going to be kind of a challenge for you. I am asking you to use your problem solving skills here, because I'm not going to have time to go back to each and every one of you at the table saw and make sure that everything is going hunky-dory. So you're going to use those problem solving skills up in your head before you come and ask me questions. You're also going to ask some people in the class who have done it before, who may be able to help you. So I want you to ask your friends. Maybe you could pair up with somebody and the two of you can be back there working on one cutting board together. So first you work on your cutting board and then you switch spots and you work on your partner's cutting board. That way you have two heads working on the same project instead of just the one, because the whole purpose of taking these kinds of classes is for you guys to be able to figure this stuff out on your own. Of course, not all the time. That's why I'm also there, but I want you to try on your own first. So if you do have any questions after you try those problem-solving skills, of course, come and ask me. But I hope this video was helpful. And I know this part got a little long. I got a little distracted with my kids behind me. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed your Christmas break. At the time of filming here, we are going into Christmas break here soon. But when you guys are watching it, it's going to be after Christmas break. So talk to you guys later. I will see you soon in hybrid. Bye.